Hello and welcome to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I'm going to be interviewing Tiffany Cano. She is a blind spot healer. For those of you who aren't familiar with Tiffany, Tiffany is the CEO of Highly Perceptive People Academy. She has been getting paid for healing since she was 8 years old. Many empaths, intuitives, transformational workshop leaders, and coaches hire her to help them see and heal their blind spots. Be better at holding space and boundaries because most are overwhelmed, subconsciously guarded, take things personally, and contract when feeling fear and contract when feeling fear and negativity. Sorry about that, guys. So she helps them be more clear and trust their intuition, feel safe to take confident and empowered action, and own their sense of self. In essence, Tiffany gets you even more aligned and congruent so that you can be even better at receiving more money, love, and joy. Tiffany is also the creator of Soul of an Empath podcast and Knowing You show, Embodiment Program, Conscious Creation, Love and Empowerment, and the Highly Perceptive People online program. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Liz. Appreciate
Such
the invite.
Such a pleasure to have you and have this conversation. We have a lot in common, and I really am interested in getting your take on these things. But I want to start with, what was your journey to today and what you're doing right now, Tiffany?
I think my journey probably began lifetimes ago, actually.
I love that.
And I know I've been a healer in many lifetimes because I could heal ever since I was a small kid. I could see clairvoyantly and intuitively pick up on energies. I've got all the clairs, the clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance. I can, smell energy, which a lot of times is not so great. I can take
True.
again, plus and minus to that, right? And I've been getting paid for healing since I was 8 years young. I started $1 for 10 minutes because my dad told me to. And so I've been an entrepreneur my entire life.
That's fantastic. Getting paid at 8 years old and go dad to encourage you and say, hey, why don't you get paid for this? And what was it exactly that you were doing at 8 years old?
I mean, it just looked like massage on his barn clients. He's a horse trainer and they were rich and he's like, you should charge them. He doesn't remember ever telling me that, but it literally launched me.
Oh, that's incredible.
And my mom was also super into holistic healing and alternative stuff. Um, so as a early teen onward, we were doing lots of training together for different types of modalities. And I've got a lot. I have so many tools in my belt now. It's amazing.
So you didn't have that experience where you had to kind of overcome, the naysayers about your abilities. It
I
sounds like you were
I
so
did.
supported.
Well, okay. So my dad did tell me that, but then once he figured out what I was doing, then he had quite a lot to say about it.
Ah.
Um, with his Catholic upbringing, he used to tease me and call me a witch and, what's that witchery, blah, blah, blah that you're doing yeah. So his side of the family and him in particular were pretty mean about it growing up. And then later in life, when his clairvoyance kicked in, he then started to have a lot more gentleness and acceptance
Interesting how that
about,
happened.
about it.
So how did you overcome that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who are experiencing the same thing. So maybe hearing your personal story about how you overcame that until his clairvoyance opened up and he started to see. How did you work with that?
Well, I didn't grow up with him. My parents divorced and when I was 6 or 7, and I mostly lived 5, 6 hours away after that point. So I would just see him like once or twice a year. that helped,
Hmm.
you know. What also helped was that my mom believed me, and my mom was into all this stuff, and I knew that she was in my corner and a rock. And she encouraged me in the right kind of ways to hone and refine various spiritual gifts and tools and skills. So that helped a lot. But I did feel as a kid like a total outsider. You know, I assumed when I was probably a toddler that everybody could see clairvoyantly because it was normal to me.
Hmm.
Um, and then, some kids were making fun of me, some family was making fun of me, um, and then I saw some things that also scared the crap out of me, like ghost stuff. And so there were a few years that I had shut it down, but then puberty kicked in and bam, all the apertures just flung open. So that's
Later in life and in your program, you talk about healing that inner child, healing the core wounds. Were you able to go in later and like heal the wounds around the things that happened in your adolescence?
Yeah. I spent a few decades doing deep inner child healing and clearing out any of the noise about daddy doesn't love me, daddy doesn't like me, daddy doesn't get me, daddy makes fun of me, like all of that kind of stuff. And that was very, very important work, I gotta say. And um, I went in and cleared out other experience of just times that I didn't feel safe or wanted or understood. I also realized that when I was in my teens, 20s, early 30s, that the drive behind teaching transformation workshops was from the wound of not feeling understood. And then after that wound was healed, for like a year or two, I had no drive to teach. I was like, and I just kind of went on sabbatical. It was very interesting. Like, so many people are driven from wounds. And once that wound was healed, I I didn't need to do that anymore. And then I was in a meditation and it was like, a divine conversation where it's like, well, how about you do it for service? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do it for that. And then I started teaching again. Right? But the way I was driven based on those inner child wounds was very different after that. Like, it's just all about contribution, about service, helping other people to feel deeply loved and seen and heard and safe and understood and belong and worthy and deserving. Because when those types of core wounds are healed, it affects everything. Money expands, love opens up, health gets better, spiritual connection gets more, uh, I would say, deeper. And so that's why I love, love, love doing that deep inner work for myself and for my clients because it ripples out to every single aspect of your life.
Wow, that's beautiful and a great thing to highlight because I don't think a lot of people realize that they're being driven by their wounds. So I kind of want to dive back into what kind of wounds can we have and how can they drive us? And then how do you work with clients to overcome that and step into this place where they're, coming from a different energy?
Well, I would say not feeling loved or lovable is another common one. And the way that will show up in, when you've got crushes on boys at a teenager, or when you're adult and, you know, uh, interested in a romantic partner, if you've got a wound of I'm unlovable, unloved, what that often can do is a combination of things. Number one, that wound vibrates at at like this subliminal level and blocks your openness to receive, blocks your openness to be vulnerable, blocks your openness to have that intimate connection or any kind of deep, authentic connection. And clairvoyantly, it also looks like there's defensive guards or walls that will go up, which also blocks energy going in and out. And then people wonder why, they're not feeling loved by their partner. Well, a big part of that is their own internal blocks that are showing up. The partner might actually be giving them like massive amounts of love, but their inability to receive it just makes it feel as if they're not getting it from their partner and unfulfilled. But when that wound is healed, significantly healed, number one, the openness, the receptivity, the trustworthiness, the fearlessness in connecting in every way, the ability to switch from it having somebody be the thing that fills their void because there was a wound there and like the trying to fill the void of being loved, it switches to, oh, I'm loved already and this is just a bonus. Like there's a deep sense of I'm already filled with love. I'm already lovable. And any interaction that happens is just bonus land.
Mhm. Oh, I love that.
It's no longer trying to have somebody fill your void, fill your loneliness, fill your longing for connection,
Mhm.
fill your, fill in the blank, right? It doesn't vibrate like that anymore because you're already healed.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And what a beautiful space to be in. And that
Mm-hmm.
offers so much because, discuss like when you finally realize, like, I am lovable, it is me loving and feeling myself. I don't need to fill the void from someone else. Discuss like that transformation that happens and how life comes to you after you reach that point.
Well, the way I help my clients get there is often through a series of healings because we need to peel away the layers. I like to think of it like an artichoke rather than peeling away the layers of the onion that make me cry. I like to get to the heart of the artichoke, so it's like you're peeling away the layers to get to the true essence of you, the heart, right? And that can take time. It's not only healing those wounds, but it's also releasing the defensive guards, walls, and shields and replacing them with healthy energetic boundaries so that you feel safe enough to receive
Mm,
this love and have boundaries where you're clear on the types of energies that are good for you, safe, empowering for you to receive. And you're a no thank you for the others, without having that emotion behind it. See, most people put up defensive walls thinking that it's a boundary and it's not.
mm,
It's coming from a wounded place. If there's emotion around it, if there's anger, frustration woven into it, that's not a boundary. That's a defensive wall. And there's at least 17 different types of defensive walls that I see clairvoyantly.
wow.
Some of the most common ones, numbness, which makes it really hard to even feel it, right? Because it's numb. A fiery wall that's got like anger and frustration and passive aggression energies in it. Um, Spikies, little spiky walls, like, ooh, that's pokey. Like their words are kind of sharp, right? Um, Sometimes the wall kind of looks like a brick wall, or maybe metal, like a medieval armor, right? So there's different types of walls that we have. Hiding. Oh, that's another common one. Hiding because you're afraid to be seen. And there's wounds about being seen because then there's, a fear that you'll be judged or criticized. So we got to clear out those wounds as well. Right. And each of these different types of shields, there's pretty much always a wound and or an imprint and or some sort of family legacy thing that's connected to it. And all of those need to go.
Mm. What does a healthy
And
boundary look like?
a healthy boundary is clear. It appropriately lets in good energies and is a no or a no thank you to unhealthy energies. So your good energies can actually go out of you in the form of love, right? And you can receive love. So the energies of love and joy and peace and, blessings and healing, all of that can freely go in and out. But you're no longer being slimed
Mm.
by other people or taking on the heaviness because someone close to you is feeling sad or depressed or lonely. You're no longer sponging up other people's negativity and then wondering why you're so freaking tired or have a headache or body aches or um, irritable, right? That's what unhealthy boundaries, the result of them are, right? You
Right.
get tired, cranky, irritable, achy, heavy, lethargic, angry, foggy,
It sounds
like
like what
those
you're
kinds of
speaking
things.
to is that empathic ability to just take on everybody's stuff. And when we don't have boundaries, we are that sponge.
That's my that's my opinion about it. Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, being empathic, spiritual, intuitive my whole life, I had to kind of go through my own journey on that. And because there was so much suffering until I learned about boundaries, I now, feel so compelled to help other sensitive, intuitive, spiritual people who need that. And then there's average Joes who don't even know that they're empathic and yet they're still sponging up stuff. They
Mhm.
just haven't identified as being empathic yet.
Right. I do want to circle back to you said family legacy. And I think this is something that isn't discussed too often as well, that, we have our ancestry to consider as well.
Yeah. So sometimes I can see and or muscle test like how many generations back somebody is carrying a negative family legacy. For example, like maybe a client comes to me because they need more money, right? And I'm looking and I'm like, well, okay, so there's some poverty consciousness, there's some scarcity, there's some unworthiness, some undeservingness, there's some fear and hiding energies. Okay. And let me see how many of these, did you absorb, as imprinted on you from someone close to you in this life? And how many came down through your generations of family and how many generations back? And I'll just test it and see, oh, okay, well, 3, 5, 7, whatever number comes up. And then we just release it.
Nice. What else are you able to see, Tiffany? You're talking about your clairvoyance. You have all of the clairs. When you're working with a client, what does that look like for you? And what are some of the things that you can see?
Well, I usually have them fill out a form or tell me ahead of time, what do you want me to focus on? Because otherwise it's just TMI, too much info. I don't want all that info. I don't need it. Just tell me what's like the main intention for this session, and then I'll narrow it from there, because otherwise, I can see like thousands of different TV shows and radio stations, there's a lot of data energetically, and it's not needed. It used to overwhelm me and wipe me out, before I learned about boundaries. And so now I just, focus in on what's important and helpful for this particular client right now.
That's great because that points out like it's not just healthy boundary for yourself in relationship situations. This goes beyond our daily relationships and dealing with the outside world. This benefits our work environment, our work relationships, and different things beyond just, what we think as being personal boundaries.
Yeah, like in my embodiment program for conscious creation, love, and empowerment, we did, I think, 7, 8 weeks of boundary work, because not only did we do micro and macro boundaries, but we did it for all the major categories, like spiritual boundaries, mental boundaries, emotional boundaries, relationship boundaries, physical space boundaries, money space boundaries, um, media space boundaries.
That's a good one.
I mean, off the top of my head, right? So it takes spiritual muscles to cultivate these, and discernment and gentleness, so you don't just beat up on yourself because you see all the ways that you've had poor boundaries in the past, but use it as a tool to say, okay, all right, I may have, you know, struggled with some of these areas before, and now I choose to empower myself in a much better way.
And I like how you point out how it's layered. It's not just one thing or one boundary. There's different areas and different layers that we're working with.
Right. And empaths, for example, we really need a lot of help with emotional space boundaries,
Mm.
so that we're not picking up everybody's emotion, and our emotional space is clean and clear, so that we can process our own stuff and have that discernment of what's mine and what's not mine. Mine, not mine, right? One of my, mentors, Allison Armstrong, who's also a longtime client, she has this thing, "Mine, not mine. Mine, not mine," right? So when you're really clear on that, it unclouds the mind and the heart. Like, "Oh, that wasn't even mine to begin with." Like, "Oh, those imprints, those negative family legacies, those weren't mine to begin with. Oh, those feelings, yep, not even mine. I can let it go."
Gosh, I remember that differentiation just being work for me. What is mine and what is not mine, because the way that my intuition, my psychic abilities, my clairs come through is through my own experience. So differentiating between, okay, I'm seeing this as it's mine, right? But this isn't actually mine. That differentiation, is really fun. And I love that you've worked with Allison Armstrong and she's worked with you. I think she's fantastic. I had the pleasure of interviewing her too a couple years ago. She's really fun.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, she's actually my longest client, paying client for over 15 years. I
Wow.
still have biweekly sessions with her.
Nice.
Yeah. And I've done all of her trainings,
Yeah, she has
because
fantastic trainings.
I love learning. Mhm.
And I think that's important too. You speak,
Yeah.
learning yourself. And I think that's part of the healer's journey also is also working on ourselves, so then we can continue to open up and bring these things to our clients as well.
Yes. Know thyself,
Yes.
heal thyself, love thyself, right? Start within and then external, right?
Yes.
And every experience we have is just a mirror to show us either how far we've come or what we still yet need healing for, I I used to get annoyed by the triggers that would show up. And now I would say for the last maybe 5 years, I actually am pretty happy and grateful about it because it shows me what parts of me are not yet healed. I get to lovingly, you know, peek into the shadow self and say, oh, okay, well, there's still a wound there about being afraid to be seen. All right, let's clear that out. No big deal. Right? Until we reach enlightenment, there's always going to be some sort of layer or wound, you know. And then when we get to the to the big oneness, which I'm still praying for and actively working on, then that'll subside. But
Right.
until then, there's work.
Yeah. And it's looking at those as gifts, right? Because those are actually gifts that move us forward.
Indeed.
Mhm. You also work with people with blind spots. So, how do you define blind spots and how do you find those with your clients?
Blind spots to me are the things that are typically hidden, mostly in our subconscious mind. The things that, unless you're actively searching, meditating, journaling, doing that inner work, you're not going to see it. The the blind spots are where those wounds are, where those subconscious guards, walls, and shields, you know, arose from. The blind spots are the things that are also sometimes right next to your brilliance. Like I still have my own blind spots, even though I am brilliant at helping other people with their blind spots, And I think some people, when they're shedding the light on themselves, need to remind themselves to also be kind, because when we see those blind spots, they're not pretty, it's a wounded part. It's, you know, maybe there's been past traumas there, and maybe you've worked on clearing layers for the last however many years, but there's still more. And how can you be gentle with yourself while you're still, sloughing away more layers?
How can we recognize these blind spots for ourselves?
One, you have to be willing. Two, brave. Three, do the inner work with meditation and or journaling and or, connecting with the divine and just like, okay, God, show me what I need to know. But I actually think it's a lot easier when you come and you work with someone like me or like you, because we're not attached to your stuff. So we can easily see, what wounds and areas need to still be healed to help you achieve the dreams that you're working on, the financial goals, the love goals, the health goals, the spiritual goals, and get you there faster and easier. So I do work on myself and I hire other people to work on me. Like I have a team of healers and coaches, and I do my own work. I do both because I want the fast track. I don't wanna have to keep coming back incarnation after incarnation after incarnation, let me utilize this lifetime to the best of my ability.
Yes, well said. I resonate with that. Yeah. I used to talk to my mom about that too. Like, don't, work on it now so you're not taking this into your afterlife and into your next life.
Mhm.
And that's a motto of mine. Okay, I'm working on this now, so I'm not taking this with me. I don't want to work on this in the next life. But probably
Yep,
unbeknownst to me and my, grasp of everything, there's probably many more layers of every little thing I'm working on in this life.
and the way you know that there's more layers is because you're not 100 yet percent yet aligned and congruent with your goal. If you were, it would be achieved already. So that is the neon sign. There's more layers.
Wow. Yeah, let's talk about that. The benefits of finding these blind spots working on our wounds? How can it benefit our life and take us to the next level?
Well, if someone has a money goal and they're like, yeah, I really want to make like 15,000 or $20,000 a month regularly and consistently. And yet I'm looking and they're anywhere between 5 to 7,000 a month. I'm like, okay, there's obviously a gap. Well, what are the beliefs? What are the stories? What are the wounds? What are the walls? What are the negative family legacies? What are the imprints that are blocking it? And then release it. And now all of a sudden their finances directly start like they're now making more money. And sometimes, they get to that certain level and then they're afraid of their own success. Okay, it doesn't mean the healing didn't work. It means now we just need to work on fear of success. you know, or fear of how being successful is going to change you,
Mhm.
or judgment and criticism that you have towards other, wealthy people, right? So
All
that's
for
how it
real.
can kind of spider web out, to
Okay.
other areas that might also need to be addressed.
Yeah, let's talk more about attracting prosperity because I think this is really up, in the collective. Like, how do we
Mhm.
release those wounds to be able to step forward to have the prosperous life that we desire? And it's not just wealth, it's everything in life.
Most people are fear driven, scarcity and fear driven. And the more media, perpetuates that, it continues to activate it further. And then maybe there's some family legacy stuff, from the World War II and the Great Depression and, other times in our family's history that still might be vibrating in your cells right here and now. All of that has to go.
Right.
And having those money space boundaries so you're not sponging up the mass consciousness or your family's beliefs about money, or the friends that you're hanging out with, you're not soaking up their negative stories about money. Like, you need to have healthy money space boundaries as well. It's not just about healing those wounds. It's about having the healthy boundaries at the same time.
Wow. And that's another layer thinking about, okay, I'm hanging around, I have this circle of friends, my inner circle, my outer circle. What are their beliefs? And do I have boundaries with them? And am I absorbing their belief systems around money? That's really kind of a tweak there and something new as well, Tiffany, that you're bringing kind of to the table is because we don't consider that money space boundary and what people in our space, how they're affecting us. Can we dive into that a little bit deeper? Because I think that's something that's not really spoken about too much.
Well, the closest people to us, the people that we spend the most time and energy with, there's a big influence that we can have on each other, good and bad, right? So if you're hanging out with like successful movers and shakers, fearless, you know, and that helps you to motivate yourself to like get out there, do more to promote your business, or you know be brave in a professional way. Fantastic. But if that same group of friends also is so driven that they have no self-care, um poor love life. Maybe they've had multiple divorces or just perpetually single, right? Well, that is not an area that you would want to inadvertently sponge up, right? That is just going to, um, you know, be sabotaging. So that's why you can have boundaries in multiple areas of your life and multiple types of spaces so that the good ones can come in and the not so good ones stay out because nobody's perfect. There's, you know, I wish there were more, holy master saintly people on this planet and I do know that there are, but we could have a lot more. And um you know, the rest of the world still has work to do. And so you can have trust and resonance with someone in one or two areas of their life, but maybe not five areas of their life. And so you're just no thank you on those other areas or only taking in the rare gem and golden nugget. I know that um one of the ninja level boundaries is how do you receive someone's gift? And it doesn't have to be a physical gift. It can be like their advice. Okay.
Mhm.
But like when I tune in clairvoyantly, I'm like, okay, well, if this is 100%, what is the percent of this gift that is actually like pure and good? And what is with strings attached? Oh, okay. And like I'll get granular. Say like, oh, well, this they had like 72% good intention and the other like 28% is like wanting to control, manipulate, have a little, uh influence on you.
Mhm.
And how do you learn how to be either a no to all of it or a yes to just that 72% that had the good meaning and good intention behind it, and a no thank you to the rest?
Ooh,
That takes skill to cultivate it to that level.
wow. Oh, I love that too, because yeah, like you said, you're breaking it down. Like, okay, what part of this gift do I want to accept and what am I a no to? Like, it doesn't, I like that you're pointing out that it doesn't have to be a full yes or a full no, that sometimes it's in the middle, that there's
Mhm.
gray area there, and there's some aspects that are a no and some aspects that are a yes.
Yeah, and if you grew up with family members that always have some sort of a a manipulation, a catch, a string, something woven into it,
Mhm.
then the tendency is to just, you know, put up the guards and be like a no. And so they don't let other people give to them because it reminds them of the wound from when their family gave those weird mixed gifts.
Wow. That's huge because you can be like, someone can be so genuine and giving you a gift, and then you're like almost repulsed by it because you're like, okay, what's the string attached to it? You're always looking for the underlying thing that's attached to it. I think, yeah,
And that's because you haven't healed the wound yet
wow.
and created the healthy boundary.
Wow, I love how you break everything down, Tiffany, into these little, just gems of wisdom that we can all benefit from, because it's looking at it at a deeper level and getting to like the root cause of why we do the things that we do.
Mhm.
How do we live like to the fullest potential, knowing we have these things like functioning under the surface?
Mm. My go-to is connecting with the divine
Mm,
and teaching other people how to better connect so that you can live an intuitively guided life, moment by moment by moment by moment. And that also takes practice to be able to get clean and clear and connect, and a willingness and a fearlessness to connect with the divine in whatever way you resonate with,
mhm,
and being able to release other wounds about whatever religious, spiritual, cultural beliefs that might have gotten in the way of you having a strong spiritual connection. You know, the spiritual dogma, religious dogma, the if you have anger at God because God took like your perception is God took someone away from you that you loved,
mm.
or why does God allow suffering in the world and therefore you can't trust God. Like, people make up all these stories and beliefs, but at the core of it, God is love. You know, we're creating our world, our life. We have certain karma, we have certain lessons. We can soften the karma and lessons by having a stronger spiritual connection and letting ourselves be guided.
Yeah. Talk about that and how our listeners can, surrender to that process and start following their intuition and be guided by that divine source.
I just taught a week-long class on the
Nice.
power of intuitive living.
I love that.
Yep, yep. You you know, in essence, we just have to keep releasing whatever that interference is, and then being willing to connect with source, connect with our higher soul, and listen. You know, it takes discipline to actually take action on the thing that we get intuition about, because we're getting divine messages all the time, but most people, they're driving around in a dirty car, right? Their energy body is dirty, you know? So it's like if you are driving down the street, but your windshield is dirty, it's harder to see. It's harder to hear what's going on outside of the car. So you literally and figuratively need to take your car, aka yourself, your aura, your body, and get it cleaned up so that there's less interference. So you can hear those whispers from your soul and hear the divine guidance, and then cultivate that trust so that you're willing to trust the advice and have the discernment about the actual message, and then start taking action on that message at the right time. So I teach people about like higher and lower intuition and heart intuition, and, practicing listening to your ego self, and then practice listening to your soul. And then, listen to a personality part like your inner child, and then listen to the divine, right? Because if you don't get a really clear sense on what each of these voices sounds like, feels like, the size of the qualities and particles, the where it registers within you, you'll never have the discernment to be able to trust accurately intuition. And then I also actually teach them how to scan or muscle test to see what's the level of accuracy. What's the level of ensoulment energy that somebody has in a message? And if it's not really, really high, then it's interlaced with your own egoic wants and desires.
Now, I know somebody's sitting there going, okay, muscle testing, how do I do this? How do I trust? How do I have that inner knowing or that guidance and be able to know that it's divine and not my ego? And can you kind of walk through maybe a process for our listeners to learn a little bit of trust if they're feeling like, oh, I don't know, which I'm listening to or what muscle testing is?
Mm, that's uh the discernment process will take longer than what we have time for, but they can actually pick that up in the Power of Intuitive Living online course. And then the muscle testing, there's various videos and trainings on how to muscle test. It's a tool from kinesiology. You may even have experienced it in your chiropractor's office. There's different ways to muscle test. Um, your body has wisdom and it has the answers. And so you can literally tune into your body and let the muscle testing give you yes or no answers. You can't ask a complex question and muscle test accurately, but you can say, okay, and what percentage of this message was accurate? 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. And you just keep muscle testing until you get the number. Or, if for those of you who know how to scan and use your hands to
Mhm.
feel energy, like you can feel it and
I love that you
see.
pointed that out, that you can feel it as well.
Mhm.
And the muscle testing. And it is really like fine tuning that question and getting to a yes or no. Like it's not just, oh, should I go to this movie? You can get a yes or no, yes for the movie, but did you ask, should I go to the movie tonight? It's like fine tuning those little details.
It's
Like,
the
would
buy
this be
win. Yeah, you
beneficial for
get
me tonight?
exactly. When I was early 20s, I got the download of, oh, make these salt scrubs for people and for animals. So we made a salt scrub line for people, but then we had them for horses and dogs and I was trying to like get it out there in the world. But it was like 10 years too soon for mainstream to like get on board with the concept of a salt scrub and the benefits of a salt scrub. Like 12 years after that, like from when I got the message, and probably 12-ish years later is when I started seeing it show up in Trader Joe's or some of the stores, right? But by then I was just burnt out because I had already been hoofing it for all those years with, so traction, right? I never asked by when. If I would have asked such a simple question, I could have either not started it yet or saved my energy, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it like intermittently. I'll do it, kind of a little bit, but I'm not going to put in all my gusto for at least 10 years from now. Then that's the time to like go hot and heavy in this direction for this project, right? I didn't ask that. I had another download that came to me, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10-ish years ago about having a certification program and training other people to be coaches and healers. And then it, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, the message came when I was meditating. Now is the time. So I just casually put it out there to my people in my embodiment program for conscious creation. Like, hey, I have this idea. I'm thinking about, doing this, certification program. Would you like to learn how to facilitate aspects of my work? Learn how to do, some healing coaching. And I immediately had people interested and ready to pay me. So I'm like, okay, I better build it now. Right? It's such a difference between, when I got the message, but then I asked the buy when and it was like, not yet. So I didn't put energy into it. And then when it was time, like the seed had sprouted. Now, okay, now is the time to, put in all the effort.
I love that you spoke into that, because who thinks of that? We get these ideas, but going the further, like, okay, now, should I be doing this now or should this be later? I think that's a really important thing to point out, because especially sensitive people like yourself can get these messages a little before the curve of when it really hits mainstream. I've experienced that myself.
Yeah. And we assume it's now. We get a
Yeah.
message, oh, therefore it must be now.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not always
so
so.
true. Yeah. Oh, Tiffany, this has been a fantastic conversation. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience that we haven't discussed yet?
Hmm. Well, I do have a couple of gifts, and then, we can do some more talking, but can I share?
Yes, please. I would love that.
Okay,
What gifts do you
so
have for our audience?
for those of you who want to see what's in your blind spot, you can book a free 15-minute call with me. So you can schedule that at callwithtiffany.com. Easy peasy, callwithtiffany.com. And I'll show you what wounds, what walls, what imprints, etc., are getting in your way of that goal that you want. And then um, for those of you who want some more prosperity and abundance, I have a money magnet program for conscious. So that has 20 minutes of prosperity meditations for 20 days. Moneymagnetprogram.org. Moneymagnetprogram.org. And you can, you know, get one or both gifts. And let me see how I can best help and support you, because we all need a helping hand from time to time. And I have such a huge library of content. I have over, I don't know, 16, 17 different online programs, probably about the same in guided meditations. And then I've got like 5 years of content that is private within my embodiment program for conscious creation, love, and empowerment. So to just give that to you is nothing to me. Yet on the other side, people say, "Oh yeah, I just finished, day 3 and I just got a raise." Or I finished day 5 and that job that I was applying for, I got it. So I get these really cool things, messages back from people. So I'm happy to give that. I'm a giver and a receiver, you know. Got to have both, right? Inhale plus exhale.
Yes.
And and my favorite thing is people will come because they need money, health, love, spirituality, but to help you recover your heart, to help you, connect with source and live that magical, divinely guided life where you're thriving, where you're successful and flourishing. I love seeing that,
Yeah.
you know? So for the open and receptive, ready to go into action, movers and shakers, grab those 2 free gifts. And then if you're not quite ready, then grab those 2 free gifts, because I'll help you to see what you need to clear so you can be ready, right?
Yes. I love that, Tiffany, so much. Fantastic. Well, our hour has just sped by. Is there a jewel of wisdom that you could leave our audience members with today?
Love. Whenever I am trying to make a decision about something, I ask myself, particularly my heart, like I'll touch my heart and I'll just say, what would love say? Or what would love do? So, for example, if you're like, well, should I take this new personal development program that I really want? Well, drop into your heart space, and release all attachment, by the way, like even before you touch your heart, like release attachment, release desires, release repulsions, like cut your cords, get nice and empty. And then touch your heart and just ask, what would love do? Right? And your heart will give you the answer. Your heart will say, yes, that would be so good for you. Or, I'm not vibing it. Or not yet, right? You'll probably get one of those 3 types of answers. And so if it's something that I need to communicate, I'll ask what would love say
Mm,
in this particular scenario or with this particular person. But if it's an action, what would love do? And
okay.
then, take the action, because the way we grow is by getting out of our own comfort zone and doing things likely that we've never done before.
Mm,
And so when you're connecting with source or listening to your heart, there's such magic and intuition there that you're going to get the best possible results, because you're not coming from a fear-based place. You're coming from love. And that's exquisite.
yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. That was beautiful. Thank you for bringing heart to today's conversation and your laugh. So much joy to today's conversation as well. I really appreciate that. And I'll have the links to those 2 free gifts down in the show notes. And what is one simple way people can get a hold of you?
Callwithtiffany.com. I also have a cell phone app, HPP Academy, um, which you can, if you go to tiffanysapp.com, it'll let you, it'll take you to the page where you can download it on your Apple devices or your Android devices. And Liz, I think you're in it now, aren't
Yes,
you?
I'm in it now. I'm so excited
Yeah,
about
so
this
Liz
app.
is actually part of my cell phone app now. There's a few people that, I've invited that I like and I want to, cross promote each other. So in that app, the HPP, which stands for Highly Perceptive People, because my company is Highly Perceptive People Academy. So HPP Academy app. There's lots of free gifts, healing audios or videos, journal prompts. There's some fun stuff. And
Yeah,
there's a membership portal. So as you know, buy certain things, I have 2 different portals that you can do it on your computer, or some things I also now have on my cell phone app, so we can get you education on the go.
nice. And we'll have those links down below too. Tiffany, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you on Raise the Vibe with Liz today. And everybody, make sure to get out there and check out the app and check her out and take advantage of those free gifts. You won't be disappointed. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining me again. I'm Liz Peterson and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And you can find me everywhere at Raise the Vibe with Liz. Have a great day, everybody. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Bye now.